off to the best. I'm so glad you guys are hanging out.
Welcome, everyone. Good evening. So nice to see folks. My name is Sasha Ahuja, and I have the privilege of serving as co-campaign manager on the Yank for New York campaign. I'm so excited. Tonight, we're joined by the wonderful Mayor Michael Tubbs of Stockton, California. He's got a new role, so he'll tell us a little bit about that. And of course, the illustrious, the wonderful candidate that I get to work for every day, Andrew Yang.
Oh, thanks, Sasha.
Really glad that we're really glad that folks could be here tonight, and we're having this conversation on a really, really big day for us. Tonight is the last time that folks can donate for the first filing cycle of Andrew Yang's campaign for mayor. As folks know, we launched 8 weeks ago, not a long time ago, and so many New Yorkers and so many folks all over the place have donated to this campaign. So tonight, if you're able, as we're having the conversation, you're feeling inspired, feeling excited, our ask to everybody is to make a donation to the campaign. You can do that from anywhere, but especially for folks that live in New York City, those donations are matched 8 to 1. And so that means that if you donate $10, that's matched by the city to be $80, worth $90 to the campaign. If you donate $100, that's worth $900 to the campaign. We have an amazing matching funds program in the city of New York. And we're super, super excited to invite even more folks, New York City and otherwise, to be part of our movement and to really show the grassroots power behind this campaign.
Wait,
as I said
Sasha,
tonight, we're so.
I just want to joke. I saw Michael's eyes moving where he's like 8 to 1. What? Because Michael's a veteran of races that he's like, that wasn't happening in Stockton. I wasn't like,
yeah. We're really lucky to have a fantastic matching funds program in the city of New York. Hopefully it'll catch fire the public financing is catching fire all over the country. But the thing that did catch fire from Stockton, which we're so excited about, is cash relief for everyday people. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Tubbs. Mayor Tubbs, Andrew and I know so much about you. We're huge fans and so grateful for your service and your leadership to the people of Stockton. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who are you? Tell us a little about your legacy in Stockton, and tell us a little bit also about what's next for you in your career.
Well, first, let me start by saying what a huge moment in American history to have a candidate leading in the polls for the mayor of the city that comes to mind for most people globally when they think of America, New York, talking about a guaranteed income for folks. And I think that's just an incredible moment that we should just pause and think about how far the concept has come from when Mr. Yang ran for president to when we piloted in Stockton, et cetera. And I think it speaks to sort of the resonance of the idea and why the idea is time has come. So my name is Michael Tubbs. I'm a former mayor, a recovering mayor for the city of Stockton, California. I think Stockton's probably the size of a borough is how you say it, in New York, about 315,000 people. And while there, one of the things we really focused on was how to increase opportunity. And we saw a way to do that as piloting a guaranteed income. So in October 2017, we announced that we're going to do a guaranteed.
I just want to rewind a little bit because you grew up in Stockton, but then you went away for school, you came back. Like, weren't you like the youngest mayor ever? Wasn't there? Like...
I had it in my head to set up.
You're skipping a lot, Mayor.
No, I had
us all the way back.
Trust me, I had it. I was going to talk about guaranteed income.
I'm sorry. It's my bad.
But no, I'll be more linear. So born and raised in Stockton, like so many young people in parts of New York, that would stand to benefit, honestly, from a guaranteed income. My mother, she had me as a teenager. My father is still incarcerated. So growing up, saw economic insecurity front and center. And what I saw was not that people didn't know how to manage money. It's that my mom didn't have enough money to manage. I saw folks who were stressed and anxious, and was lucky enough to go away for school and thought I would never come back. So I went to Stanford, ended up coming back to Stockton to run for city council, and then saw firsthand as a governing official just how so many of the issues we talk about in city government, whether it's homelessness, whether it's crime, whether it's educational attainment, the root cause is economic insecurity and poverty, and how much creativity we lose because folks are stressed and anxious and being creative about how to pay bills or how to make the money rise. So longer story short, in October 2017, we launched the Guaranteed Income Pilot, and it was amazing to be launching a pilot at the same time Andrew was running for president. And folks were saying, is that what you guys are talking about in Stockton? Is that what you meant? And it's like, yeah, we're talking about this idea of direct cash transfers. And I think what the pilot we did in Stockton is in line with sort of the proposal in the campaign policy documents, an idea that we want to get to universality, but while building to that, which has to be federal, let's see what cities can do. And cities may not be able to help everyone, but they can show proof of concept and also ensure that the folks who need it the most get it and get it in a way that doesn't replace their existing benefits, which is like a win-win-win for all people, all sectors, et cetera. So last week, the pilot results in Stockton came out, and it found what the Yang Gang folks have been saying for years. It found what Andrew had been saying, and it found what people like the Economic Security Project, Dr. King, Thomas Paine, what we were saying when we launched in Stockton. It was this idea that the money allowed people to work harder, and if they chose to do so in terms of going from part-time work to full-time work, it gave people agency to make choices. It made people healthier. And it also allowed people to weather income storms with income volatility. And that was before COVID-19. And now we've seen, and I know a big part of this campaign, and everyone's talking about New York's recovery from COVID-19. Now recovery starts with the people who make New York, residents, people, folks. And what we saw in Stockton is that the guaranteed income was enough to allow people to persist during a pandemic. So to that end, in June, we started a group called Mayors for Guaranteed Income. We don't yet have a mayor of New York in that program.
I might be able to join Mayors for Guaranteed Income. It would be my highest wish.
It would be awesome. It'd be awesome to have a New York mayor as part of Mayors for Guaranteed Income, and not 44 mayors throughout this country. Earlier today, I was on a council meeting Zoom in Chicago. The city of Chicago is thinking about using COVID dollars as guaranteed income. And LA, Wausau, Wisconsin, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, et cetera. So it's a very exciting time for this conversation. Thank you for having me. And Andrew, I'm glad you're running again. And continuing to bring awareness to the issues that matter and to make sure we understand we could trust people with money.
Well,
and shout out to Scott Saddens. Before I don't want to get.
Oh no, Scott Saddens.
Me.
I mean, geez, that guy is like my UBI guru / godfather, among others. I mean, I had other folks who led me to this point, but Scott, I mean, no one's thought about it more than him. He's lived it. So Michael, I have to say, I was thrilled to see the Stockton results come out in like publication after publication. Can you dig in a little bit more into what the data said giving folks money in Stockton actually meant in real life?
Yeah, so the first point, and the one that I heard over and over again when we were piloting, and I'm sure you heard it while you were running for president, was this notion that guaranteed income was going to make people not work, that somehow a small cash would make people forget how to work, not want to contribute, and that just turned out to be false. We saw that folks in the guaranteed income pilot compared to those who weren't in the guaranteed income pilot were more likely to leave part-time work for full-time work.
Wow.
Least likely to, my favorite stat, least likely to be unemployed. And that's because the guaranteed income unlocked options for people, particularly folks who are economically insecure, which isn't just people in poverty, it's people one paycheck away. It's 1 in 2 Americans who can afford the $1 to $500 emergency, that the risk of taking time off work to interview was too costly if you don't have paid time off. And we saw like one man, Tomas, in his first month in the program, he said he took time off work and applied for a full-time job with benefits and got it. And he said I was able to spend more time with my kids. I was a better parent. I had more money. I worked less hours and I was more stable. And it's stories like those that the data speaks to. The second sort of big results from the data is this notion of a guaranteed income helping with forms of stress and anxiety, because I think so much, and the data shows this, so much of the stress and so much of the anxiety that we see in our society can be triggered by like the stress of figuring out how to make sure the ends meet, how to pay off debt, how to deal with this unexpected emergency, how to pay rent with the way housing costs are rising. And we saw that before the guaranteed income, those in the treatment group or those receiving the guaranteed income and those in the control group had similar levels of stress and anxiety. They were elevated on the Kessler scale. In fact, they were mildly depressed, a doctor would diagnose them. And after 1 year, just 1 year, the folks who received the guaranteed income went down to normal levels of stress, normal levels of anxiety,
That's incredible.
not no longer being depressed, and comparable to clinical trials of Prozac in terms of the change. It doesn't mean medicine doesn't matter, of course, but it does mean that a basic, like, economic insecurity is unhealthy, and that a guaranteed income could help not just people work, but people to live and to live without the stress and anxiety.
Michael, I love
That's
that
amazing.
comparison so much, where if you lined up a bunch of people and being like, would you prefer cash or Prozac? I have a feeling they'd choose the cash, you know?
Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit about your campaign and your candidacy for mayor, sort of building on the energy of Mayor Tubbs. And just Mayor Tubbs, I know you've inspired so many people, so many young people of color, especially knowing as a young person, you ran and you won a seat for mayor. And so thank you for all of your service and your work. You've been your true inspiration and demonstrating that it's possible.
How old were you when you won that city council seat, Michael?
I was 21 when I won the primary, and 22 when I became a city council member.
And then how old were you when you became mayor?
I was 26 when I became mayor, but I'm also the youngest ex-mayor ever. I was 30 years old when I didn't win re-election.
Full of
no
firsts,
big deal.
Michael, full of
really
firsts.
Casual.
So for all those people older than 22, what are you doing? Why don't you be more like Michael? No. So Michael, you and I met a couple of times out west before, frankly, people really were paying attention to my campaign at all. The first time there was like a Democratic leader confab in California. Like I forget the name of the organization.
It was Summit.
Yes. So I met you then, and, was blown away, and it was like, gosh, this guy's like a freaking movie character come to life. And they actually did make a documentary about Michael on HBO, not that long ago, right? X months ago.
Like last August, July.
Yeah. See, like less than a year ago. And then we were together again on a panel out west, where we were talking about basic income. You were talking about what was going on in Stockton. I was like, we should just be giving everyone. At the time, I was arguing for $1,000 a month, which seemed far out. And now at this point, it seems kind of conservative. I should have been higher. I didn't go far enough. But then after the panel, you and I had a moment, and you leaned over to me and you said to me, Andrew, you can say shit I can't say. I don't know if you remember saying this to me. And then I took that. I was like, wow, that's really kind of profound. It was very motivating for me. I don't even know if you remember this exchange.
I definitely remember, because I remember we're on that. Annie O'Lowry was the moderator.
Yes.
And you were, the way you were talking, I'm like, yes, because I'm beholden to sort of this office and trying to socialize this idea in a way that's palatable to the folks I represent. But I was like, yeah, you could go all full in. And I think part of how we move so quickly is because you were able, using your platform as a presidential candidate, to speak so clearly about not just the threats of automation, which are real, but the threats of today, and saying we could trust people, we need a guarantee, we need basic income, and just really get into the nomenclature. So at least everyone else on that stage had to respond to it. They had to have an answer to, they support universal basic income.
Well, at this point now, 55% of Americans are for universal basic income, according to the last poll I saw. 85% are for cash relief during the pandemic. So we did it, brother. we freaking mainstreamed it. But now we have to, keep on proving it in different communities, implement it in different places. I certainly hope to demonstrate what cash can do in a place like New York City. And one of the things that you just made me think about, when financial insecurity is pervasive in this country, as is depression, anxiety, mental health problems. And so I feel like we're making our people sick through financial insecurity, and then we're either not helping them because a lot of people, are just falling through the cracks, or if they show up in our institutions, then we're going to drug them, then we're going to give them the Prozac. and so, and I hate to say it, but, I think that, the clearest example was the opiate epidemic, but there are institutions that are like, what, you have a problem? Let me prescribe something for you. And oh, by the way, there's like billions of dollars to be made on that too. Like it's really like this very inhuman, punishing loop that we put people on. And the obvious answer is just to start putting money into people's hands. I can't believe that. Well, I can believe actually. I can believe that it's the difference between being mildly depressed and like a level of mental normalcy.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Andrew, can you tell folks a little bit about our cash relief program that you proposed as part of your launch?
I'm too busy enjoying my digging into Michael here, Sasha. I can talk about my cash relief program. So New York City has 8.3 million people. How many people got the cash relief in Stockton, Michael?
Only 125.
Still, I mean, it's 125 families plus all the ripple effects. So we are going to try to alleviate extreme poverty in New York City. And New York City being very large, there are about 500,000 people that are in extreme poverty. And so the goal is to lift them out of extreme poverty. So we are committing $1 billion a year to this effort. A B! Finally, someone brought the B for cash relief. Well, actually, I should not say that, because the fact is tens of millions of Americans are getting $1,400 checks right now. So that's actually like the tens of billions. So I don't want thank you, Senate. Thank you, Chuck Schumer and Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff and every other, Nancy Pelosi, like everyone who's making that happen. But at least localized, this is going to be the largest effort. And I'm trying to tackle poverty in multiple ways, but obviously the most direct and impactful is via cash. So we're going to be trying to build the pipelines and infrastructure necessary to frankly identify and reach a lot of people who are extremely poor in New York City, because a lot of those people right now certainly don't have bank accounts. Like 12% of New Yorkers don't have bank accounts. A lot of them are undocumented. There's like a very low level of trust. And so one of the things we're hoping to build on is something called ID NYC, which is an ID card that people of any documentation status or immigration status can use to access public facilities in various ways. So you can have someone, frankly, just like go to a library or, other official buildings. So we're hoping to have them receive this cash via ID NYC and build up new connections with them. Also try and get them basic bank accounts. So it's very exciting. I will confess to you all, I don't think I've said this in another context, but when I was looking at this entire campaign and the problems of New York City and the rest of it, I actually was very motivated by the fact I was like, I might be able to get $1 billion to very poor people in New York City. I mean, like, can you imagine that? It's like the greatest, and I think we're going to do it. I'm really excited about, frankly, like the response it's getting from various people in both the government realm, but also in the private sector. There's some philanthropists who've talked to me about this and said, Andrew, I want to work with you on it. So we're hoping even to expand it beyond $1 billion if we can.
And I would say, I think that would be so seismic, not just for New Yorkers, but for the country, right? When you think of sort of a city saying, I'm going to invest $1 billion, and the best way to use that money is a direct investment in the folks who oftentimes are the most overlooked, the most marginalized, the most scapegoated for problems, and saying that's part of our solution and part of how we want to build back better. I think that will have a ripple effect in terms of sort of other cities putting even more in to what they've already committed. So that's incredibly exciting to hear. I had no idea it was $1 billion. That's like, I mean, that's New York scale though. That's real money.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael. I'm so glad that you're even more excited now. It sounds like my membership with Mayors for a Guaranteed Income is more or less assured if I just freaking win this race.
Mayor Tubbs, what advice do you have for us here in New York and for folks across the country who are looking at basic income, real cash relief, and looking at implementing? We'd love to learn from.
Yeah, I think, and Andrew mentioned it, a lot of it was trust, because you think that, hey, we're going to give this money, people will sign up. That just wasn't the case. So what we've been telling the other cities in Mayors for Guaranteed Income is, and you would know this given your background, invest in social workers, invest in outreach workers who are going to be able to assure people this is not a scam. And because we also did it in 2000, no, literally, because in 2018, at the same time we were talking about this, then President Trump was talking about deporting people. So folks were very skeptical about giving any information to government, particularly our mixed status households. So we had to spend a lot of time community organizing, knocking on doors, having office hours, just making sure there's a robust infrastructure to let people know this is real and you're not going to be penalized. And then I think also is the conversation around it, because so much of it, and I mean, the world has changed a bit since 2017, but so much of the work we did was really confronting terrible tropes about people being welfare queens or people being lazy or people not being deserving. So really going head in and talking about like, well, no, the issue isn't with individual choices, it's with these wider policy choices. So that would be my only, and then capture the stories, because I was amazed. Every month my staff would come to me with a different example, and it really humbled me as a policymaker, because I realized there's no way I can think for 315,000 people every single day how they should spend their money. And I would hear these stories, like one woman said it helped her in the summer because her kids come home in the summer from school and her utility bills go up, her food costs go up, but her income doesn't. And she says she usually gets stressed when they come home, but she doesn't tell them.
No, she should be enjoying that time.
Yeah, and that's what she was saying. She said, I finally get to actually breathe and enjoy. And we kept hearing that over and over. So I think highlighting the stories and giving face and voice, because we also know in this country that race and class are so intertwined, and really showing that you can trust everyone with money, and everyone includes Black people. You can trust Black people with money. You can trust women with money. You can trust women of color.
Everyone includes Black people.
You have to remind people sometimes. I think part of that work is also super important, just to confront or combat like 400 years of negative thoughts and associations with people. So that's probably a longer answer than you're looking for.
No, dude, you're totally right. I mean, you do need it, but to just say here, you say everyone includes Black people is like, I mean, like it's obvious, like it's, I mean, like, it's the most obvious statement in the world, and yet it's somehow needed all the time. So Michael, I want to ask what you're going to be working on now, but with this as a precursor, because it'll be fun. All right. So when I was running for president, saying we should give everyone this freedom dividend of $1,000 a month, the number one question I got was, where is the money going to come from? And during that time, like I had to try and make a case to people. It's like, look, we have a $22 trillion economy. We gave $4 trillion to Wall Street in the bailout when they needed it. Like we actually have the resources to do this like immediately if we actually decided to do so. And then people would hear me and be like, no. And then fast forward to 2020, we got 2.2 trillion out the door for the CARES Act. We got 1.9 trillion out the door today. And so people now are like, wait a minute, like we really could do this if we wanted to. And unfortunately, one of the things that people should know is that a very small fraction of this 2.2 trillion or even this 1.9 trillion went into people's hands. Like, when you got that $1,200 check, you might think, oh, that's where the money went. No. Like the $1,200 per American comprised, I think the number, like it actually does not just that measure, but other measures, including unemployment enhancement and the rest of it. I read somewhere that was approximately 14% of the total CARES Act. The vast majority of it still went to the balance sheets of various companies, and like the rest of it, like very, very little of it went to families. This bill is better. It's a higher percentage. I think it's something like twice as high. Still not high enough. More should have gone to families. When I did the math, the CARES Act, that 2.2 trillion, that was enough to give everyone in the country $1,000 a month for 6 months, which I'm going to suggest would have been a fine use of their money. We would have been in good shape. So that was the question I got. It has kind of been answered by our government. They've pushed 1.9 trillion out the door. Some of it's going to go to New York. Some of it's going to go to California, where you are. And so that's my very long-winded way of asking, what are you going to be up to next? Because I think that there's going to be some federal money that's going to be coming your way, or California's way, your state's way.
Yeah, I've just been tapped to be a special advisor to Governor Newsom on economic mobility and opportunity. And part of my charge will be, at least with the mayors in California who have signed up to be parts of Mayors of Guaranteed Income, and what ways can the states assist them? I'm learning about working for an elected, so I can't. So I have ideas of what we should do, and I'm confident we'll do some of it, but I'm hesitant until the actual governor says it's what we're doing. But before I came on, we had a conversation about guaranteed income and how I'm still continuing my work with Measure Guaranteed Income, for example, and I suspect the roles were kind of reinforced in some way. So yeah.
Congratulations. That's
I'm still
excellent.
learning, Sasha. It's weird because usually I can just say that's what we're gonna do, but I can't say that yet.
We don't know. I want to pick up on the point that you raised, Mayor Tubbs, that I think is so important, of trust on both sides. One is that people should trust government or need to retrust government, especially during the Trump years and certainly through the COVID crisis. There have been so many reasons that I think there's mistrust or distrust of government. And then that we, hopefully folks that, are working on behalf of people, and Andrew as our future mayor, that government needs to trust people at the same time. So Andrew, I'm wondering if you can sort of offer some perspective on that. I just want to
interject here for a minute because of something that Michael said, and then, would love for Michael to go into it more. But it's very, very difficult to convince someone who's organizing their waking life on trying to save a few bucks so they can try and afford this, and then and they're making time money trade-offs all of the time. And then if you come to them and say, hey, I'm going to give you $500 or I'm going to give you this, it literally is so dissonant with their waking life that they're just no. That's impossible. It's a scam. It's too good to be true, et cetera, et cetera. And that's completely natural and human. It's just adaptive that if you're operating in an environment of scarcity, then you have to be very, very careful and judicious about any expenditure, and everything else. And then if someone comes and says, no, you can you can relax a little bit, here's some money or whatnot, they're going to have a hard time hearing that and believing that. And this is something that I learned also when I was running for president, is that, number one was where does the money come from? And I was actually, we have the money. But what that is that's a side of this struggle. And I'm sad to say, I think that one side is very much winning right now. And this is really what I translated it as was a mindset of scarcity, or an experience of scarcity, and a mindset of abundance. And the fact is, human beings are essentially steeped in and trained in a mindset of scarcity, of resource scarcity. And that has actually worked for us for a lot of our existence. Because if you're, let's say, a hunter-gatherer, and you've got a certain amount of food and supply and whatnot, that you have to be very, 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 very careful about it. You have to, use every piece of the animal or what, that's, so we're generally programmed for resource scarcity. And that's extended into modern life, where you have everyone's pinching pennies to try and make ends meet. And then when the Asian guy comes around saying, give everyone money, some people will be oh, it's impossible, shut it down. Or if someone comes to you individually and is hey, I want to give you $500, they'll be oh, they'll just shut it down or mistrust. So that was an experience I had on the presidential trail, pretty consistently, honestly. So Michael, this goes back to Sasha's question about how do you get someone from that experience to actually begin to say wow, this is real.
Well, I had a phenomenal staff who spent a lot of time thinking about sort of the community engagement strategy, which include not just outreach folks to kind of get people to sign in, but also while it was happening, having a one-stop shop of a couple of people whose jobs were to just help people, because things are going to happen. Something's going to happen with the card. Something might be a little bit it's just, but to your point, when you live in when hope is expensive, any little thing, whether it's a card malfunctioning or forgetting the PIN or disbursement being 10 minutes late, creates a moment of crisis, this is fake. So really having sort of the staff infrastructure and support to kind of build the trust and to troubleshoot, I think was super critical. And it's funny because as the program evolved, the texts stopped being about my card was malfunctioning, just to sharing news. Because oftentimes, particularly because it was a randomly controlled study, many people in the program didn't tell their families they were receiving the money. So the program staff became like their valve in terms of, hey, I bought so-and-so this for with the $500. They don't know it came from this program. But I think it's all about relationships. And I appreciate you raising the point that those who experience economic insecurity oftentimes have very valid reasons to not trust government. Those who who aren't documented have incredibly valid reasons not to really want to engage with, give information to the government. And I think building that trust just requires the relationship building and just the infrastructure so that people know it's real. And I don't know about New York, but in Stockton, my folks like to touch, to see. I'm a tech person. I like text messaging. I like email, but my folks like in-person conversation where I can look you in the eye and ask you questions. So we had to make sure we built that out to meet people where they were at instead of what would be my preference.
Oh, well, this learning is so important. I'm actually getting a tremendous amount from this, which, it's funny. It's like sometimes you have to learn and relearn something, even because like Michael, I learned some of this on the presidential, but now I'm actually imagining what this is going to mean for us. And I'm going to share with you an experience that actually speaks to some of this. And I'm realizing now that we managed to address this because we were very fortunate and had a partner that could supply some of what your staff supplied. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to rewind to almost exactly 1 year ago. COVID was just shutting down everything. I had just started an organization called Humanity Forward that was going to be advocating for basic income and cash relief in various ways. We had, at the time, I want to say maybe we had like $2.5 million that we'd raised from incredible people like you all. So thank you, everyone. So we had $2.5 million that we were planning on using for universal basic income pilots of various kinds. But given what COVID was doing, I was like, this seems much more urgent and overwhelming. And like my running a UBI trial that's going to take like years to get the data does not seem like the appropriate response to what is happening with this pandemic. So I was like, so what can we do that would be more impactful right now, help people, because like the needs seemed like they were going to be everywhere. So I came up with this conclusion that we should give $1 million to 1,000 indigent New Yorkers as quickly as possible, because I thought that would help those people, obviously. But it also might be like an accelerant for our government to adopt some version of cash relief. I thought maybe I could get some press around it, and just sort of demonstrate it's like, hey, there's a pandemic shutting everything down. Like we should probably send people money because like that's going to be just about the only thing that's going to keep them afloat, and also have people adhere to your like public health guidelines and everything else. So that was my master plan, is like, let's give away $1 million. Now, you being someone who's done this, already you're seeing like all of the operational problems with giving people $1 million. So we chose the Bronx because I thought, well, like that's going to be a high need area. And a lot of those folks are going to be folks that feel like they have to leave the house in order to, make ends meet. And so it's like, I thought they'd have a better chance of like making, better decisions if they didn't feel like that material deprivation. So I'm going to describe this. This might entertain you. So my first idea was like, okay, let me call a bank and have them identify for me 1,000 people that are financially insecure based upon their banking activity. So and being, not an idiot, I called 2 banks. And you all heard of them. They're very famous banks. So you can probably guess what happened with these banks. Like, what do you think?
They probably were scared. I mean,
yeah, they're like, after giving me the runaround for like X days, they were like, we cannot do this. There are regulatory problems, there are privacy problems. And I was like, you do realize I'm literally trying to give 1,000 of your customers $1,000 each. Like you realize that no one's going to be upset at you. and they're like, can't do it. Sorry. Probably not shocking. So then I asked those banks, I was like, can you give me cash cards of any denomination that I could stack into maybe $1,000 and just like physically somehow find a way to get them into people's hands. I thought I was like, don't, like, I just want cash cards. They could not do it. They said it would take like months for them to even give us cash cards. And I was like, what? Like, what's the bottleneck in like cash cards? Again, not being an idiot. Like we'd also pursued a totally different route where we were trying to find a partner in the community that had access to families that were struggling in this way. And we found an incredible partner called Neighborhood Trust. They're a credit union and a nonprofit that provides financial planning to indigent families, largely in the Bronx, but in other parts of the city. So when we coordinated with them, we found that they could identify 1,000 high need families in the Bronx, that they had access to their bank accounts or their credit union. They could put $1,000 into their account, and then they could even provide a financial counseling session on top of that. They could meet with the person and say, hey, Humanity 4 is giving you $1,000. Like, what's your plan with it? Et cetera, et cetera. And because these people had a banking relationship with Neighborhood Trust, they literally trusted. You know what I mean? Because like it's literally their credit union or their local financial provider. It's a nonprofit as well, so that probably helps with like the relationship in that way. So that's a very long-winded way of saying to you that was our experience a year ago when I was like, I'm going to get $1 million out to people. And we were very fortunate to have an institutional partner that already had those relationships. But now you got me thinking, it's like, okay, like, are we going to be able to find partners again at that scale? But we're certainly going to need someone who already has that kind of relationship.
That's what we did. We employed people who folks knew in the community and said, hey, for 3 months, could you be our basic income counselors? And you meet with people, you call them. And that was helpful because it gave particularly because politics are so weird, it gave a non-political face to the benefit. That wasn't the mayor, who I may or may not like, but so-and-so who's the social worker who I know, or so-and-so who works at this nonprofit. And I mean, shout out to the team, Suki Samra, my director, and Aaron, who did the community engagement, led that, and Louisa. They were brilliant and really said, no, let's hold up. Let's figure out a way to get more people involved in the disbursements, because that's how people will accept. Because I would tell you the first time, so I have a similar story. I was like, well, people are struggling, so let's just send these letters out. We did a bunch of news, a bunch of press. It's gonna be like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? Like, I got the golden ticket. So we sent a bunch of letters out and we only got a few back. And I was like, wait. Wow. So then we tried it again. And it was like, wait. And then we recognized that people had to hear a voice. So then we did like automated calls to all the randomly selected folks and live call, a number where they could get a live person. And that's when we saw enough people that could do the treatment group and the control group, or receive the income and not receive the income. But it was a function of trust. Like, folks did not care. They didn't trust this letter. They didn't trust. They were like, it's too good to be true. To your point you raised a couple minutes ago, Andrew. Particularly when my whole life it's so much of it is about happenstance. Like this week, my car happened to run. This week, my car happened to have a flat tire, or I happened to get a parking ticket, and it has all these cascading impacts. Again, hope was expensive, which is why, long-winded way of saying, absolutely find neighborhood partners like the bank.
Like Neighborhood Trust, it's even in their name. So Michael, congratulations on the incredible work you're doing. If someone wants to keep up with you or even support Mayors for a Guaranteed Income or another organization, is Mayors for a Guaranteed Income like a nonprofit where someone could donate if they were someone?
Yeah, it's a 501c3. You could go to mayorsforagi.org or at mayorsforagi on Twitter.
I'm hoping to join Mayors for a GI. So
$1 billion.
Yeah, man, I guess that might be enough.
A little drop in the bucket.
So on our side,
awesome.
Let's give Michael an incredible round of applause for being such a champion rock star. So young, has accomplished so much, Michael. Helped so many people, and really the best leader you can imagine for Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. On our side, Michael, I want to follow in your footsteps. Like, I'm not going to be the youngest mayor, but I'm going to be like hopefully the mayor. So anyone watching this, tonight's our last night to meet this filing deadline. So if you can donate any amount, that would be phenomenal. We're trying to put up a really strong number in terms of number of donors, grassroots donations of the life's blood. If you're in New York City, you get matched 8-1. It's wild. Starting at $10 all the way up to $200. Really, Michael's still laughing because he can't believe that's a thing. but so it's essentially a 9x multiple. So if you donate $20, we get 180. And so if you can do this I know, Michael, don't worry, there is a limit. Eventually they stop matching, but we're nowhere near that point yet. So we're gonna keep doing it until we hit that threshold. We're in great shape, but we need your help to win this race, to make this case for cash relief, guaranteed income in New York City, in California, around the world. And Michael's going to be one of the people that takes us there. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate the heck out of you, brother. All the best to your beautiful
Thank you,
family.
Michael.
Michael's a dad. Michael's got like I want to say it's a baby boy, right?
Yeah, we have a 17-month-old or 16-month-old. We have another one on the way in August.
Oh my gosh.
Congratulations.
Wait, do you know if it's a boy or girl?
No, we're gonna be surprised again. We were surprised the first time, so we're gonna do it again.
So another thing about Michael, you're apparently a stronger-willed person than I am, because I could never have done that.
Oh no, it's the best. It's the best. Well, it was the best last time. It'll be great. It'll be the best again.
Oh,
Lots of happenstance, Michael, as you said. Lots of happenstance. So.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Let's go, New York City.
Have a great evening.
Guaranteed income.
Thank you, guys.